2023 is a crazy year for handhelds. Not one, but two major PC manufacturers joined the handheld arms race. All of the materials and hands-on with device seem very promising. This is certainly Lenovo's time in the limelight. Cat's out of the bag now. It's no longer a Windows report leak. It's an official device being released at some point next month. And as you may have guessed, Dave2D already has his hands on one. Thanks to all of the various leaks, there's a lot we already know about. I'm super hype about the detachable controllers. They can attach and detach to the device similar to like a Nintendo Switch would. It would be super relaxing to detach controllers, kick back the kickstand, lay back, and then just play the game using the controllers, detached. That's something I still do with my Nintendo Switch sometimes. And this was the reason why the 1X Player 2 was so disappointing. It had detachable controllers, but you couldn't use them while detached. It was stupid. You had to use one of those center controller thingies that holds your two sides together. You couldn't like have them separated. A solid 0 out of 10 in my book. So let's go back to the Legion Go. The controllers detach from one another, and one of the coolest things you can do is use the right side as a sort of mouse. It greatly resembles a vertical mouse, and for those of you that have never used a vertical mouse before, they tend to be very comfortable, and in many cases they're supposed to be healthier for your hand than a typical mouse. Whether or not this is comfortable or even really suitable for my hands is another story. I would have to get one of these devices, but Dave2D confidently says that he could maintain Grandmasters in Overwatch 2. Which is no easy feat, it's the highest rank. And considering he does actually play a lot of Overwatch, and you know, the fact that he is a Grandmaster to begin with, it gives me a lot of hope that this mouse is actually pretty good. But I'll be the judge of that. I'll be the judge of that playing Ultra Kill. The left side of the controller has no such mouse sensor, so you can't use it as a sort of left-sided mouse. There's also the fact that a lot of games don't like using keyboard and mouse and controller simultaneously. Like for example, a lot of competitive games. So if I had to guess, if you were using the right controller as a mouse, then the left controller would act like a sort of keyboard. You know, the stick would be WASD, and then you would have functions for the left trigger and all the other stuff. There's a reason why developers do this, and it's because sometimes there's balance differences between keyboard and mouse and controller. Dave2D talks about the D-pad, and wow, the D-pad is clicky, and it's the loudest D-pad I've ever heard in my life. Like, seriously.
Favorites. So this has a very audible click when you click the different positions, like
it's like some mechanical keyboard Cherry MX Blue loud. But I mean, it seems like he can pull off Tatsumaki's just fine, so it's a matter of subjective preference, I think. Maybe it'll be a lot better in my hands. I love doing complex inputs in fighting games, like the pretzel motion. It's really not that complex, really. What is complex, though, is this pentagram motion from Arcana Heart. I'm going to enjoy putting the Legion Go's controller through the paces. One particularly confusing aspect is the macro buttons. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and honestly, maybe it's just my OCD going off, but I would prefer it if they were both horizontal or both vertical, not one or the other. And yes, there's a trackpad. People have been wanting trackpads on these devices for quite some time now, and thanks to the Steam Deck, they finally got it. The Lenovo Legion Go only has one trackpad, and the trackpad on the Steam Deck was capable of far more thanks to Steam Input. Ultimately, it's up to Lenovo to give it some sort of functionality. Like if it only functions as a mouse, then it's a pale imitation of the Steam Deck's trackpads. This applies to every device that's going to have a trackpad in the future, including the Aya Neo Kun. The face button seems serviceable enough. I mean, it's got ABXY, start and select. It's got a Legion Go and a quick access menu for the Legion Go, but the big question is, where's the quote-unquote Xbox button? The Xbox button does bring up a bunch of really useful information if you're on a Windows device, but the thing is, this handheld doesn't have an Xbox button. Steam can also hook into the Xbox button, much like how the Steam button brings up the Steam menu, you know? Last and certainly not least are the joysticks. Lenovo says they're Hall effect sticks, which means they should, in theory, never drift. Thank God they're putting Hall effect sticks in their controllers, because those controllers seem really expensive to replace. I mean, the controllers themselves are chock full of technology. Like, they can't be cheap to make or get replacements for. So yes, Hall effect sticks are the best you can get, and furthermore, you can replace the stick tops. Like, if you don't like the stick tops of those sticks, then you can get a replacement or 3D print your own. They're easily replaceable. Requires a little bit of force to remove, but honestly, it's not too bad. So yes, by far the most interesting part of the Lenovo Legion Go is the controller itself, with multiple different functions. I wonder if these work on other devices as well. I'll have to see. What's less interesting in comparison are the specs, though we do have to talk about the specs because what computer is complete without talking about the specs, right? It sports a Z1 Extreme, much like the ROG Ally. It's got 16 gigabytes of RAM, and it's faster than the ROG Ally as well. It's got a higher resolution display, 2560 by 1600. Not only is this a 1440p resolution, but it's also 16 by 10, the same aspect ratio as the Steam Deck. It's also 144Hz as opposed to the ROG Ally's 120Hz. The display itself isn't OLED, but it's a highly color accurate IPS display, sporting around 97% DCI-P3 color accuracy. It also has 500 nits of brightness. It's substantially better than the Steam Deck's own display, and marginally better than the ROG Ally's own display. But if you're looking for OLED, look no further than their Legion glasses. It's OLED. The glasses have a 1080p resolution, which is, weirdly enough, lower than the Lenovo Legion Go's own display. It plugs in via Type-C. More on that later. Thermals is one of those things you can't really talk about without experiencing yourself, or without someone doing some extensive testing, neither of which has happened. The cooling system does look fairly robust, and I mean, it's a thick boy. It would be interesting to see if this is any more efficient and quieter than the ROG Ally. But only time will tell. The press release for the Lenovo Legion Go lists 3 different sizes: 256 gigs, 512 gigs, and 1 terabyte. It uses a 2242 sized NVMe SSD, which is slightly bigger than the one that you would find on like the Steam Deck or ROG Ally, but it's still very much a non-standard size. The standard size being, you know, a 2280 sized SSD. When it comes to 2242 sized SSDs, I think they only really make up to 2 terabyte models. So yes, as it currently stands, the most you'll be able to put in your Lenovo Legion Go is 2 terabytes. Also, the standoffs are spaced too far for you to put in a 2230 SSD inside. You'll have to modify it somehow. And due to the position of the SSD slot, you literally cannot run a 2280 SSD. It would literally run outside of the device. You can also insert a micro SD card. Curiously, Lenovo's website states that it supports up to a 2 terabyte micro SD card, but I don't see any 2 terabyte micro SD cards around. There's a whole lot of fake ones on Amazon, so don't buy any of those. As far as I'm aware, Kioxia is currently developing a 2 terabyte model, but it's a prototype, not currently available to the masses. It sports a 49.2 watt-hour battery. Each controller also has its own separate battery, being rated for around 900 milliamps per hour. It has more physical battery capacity than the ROG Ally and Steam Deck, but to be honest, battery life is a combination of software and hardware, and so you really can't determine battery life until you've really tested it out for yourself. It supports Wi-Fi 6E. I know a lot of people may not have Wi-Fi 6E routers in your house, but Wi-Fi 6E is really good. The Legion Go also comes with 3 months of free Game Pass Ultimate, which is pretty cool. It also comes with their own Legion Space software. You know, kind of like Aya Space. What a weird name for a software. Last but certainly not least, let's talk about connectivity. Aside from the micro SD card reader, the device has a 3.5mm headphone jack. It's actually labeled as a combo jack, so you can plug in a mic and headset to it. This device also has 2 USB Type-C ports, one on top and one at the bottom. Thank God someone made a bottom-mounted USB Type-C port. Now some company can make a dock that has the port on the bottom so that it looks seamless and there's no stupid obnoxious wire coming off the top. These are also USB 4 ports, allowing you to plug in Thunderbolt 3 GPU docks. No proprietary GPU ports, unlike the ROG Ally. Thank God. And with those ports comes a number of different accessories. We talked about the glasses already, but let's talk about their in-ear gaming headphones. It's got RGB. It plugs in via Type-C, which is unusual for a device meant for PCs. You only really see Type-C headphones for things like mobile devices, you know, phones and stuff. I'm sure these are pretty decent earbuds, but I have a ton of great headphones, so I don't need these at all. I almost forgot about this, but this device actually comes with a carrying case. Unlike the ROG Ally, this device comes with a Steam Deck S carrying case. You can fit the Legion Go, the mouse puck, and even like an extra stick cap, and there really isn't much room for anything else, to be honest. One neat little feature is the fact that there's a cutout at the bottom for the charger. you can keep your device in the case and plug it in. Now this is the part where I talk about some concerns and considerations. It's a 1440p display with a 144Hz refresh rate. Paired with a Z1 Extreme, can games even run at that resolution at that frame rate? If the ROG Ally is indicative of anything, it's that the Z1 Extreme processor really has no business playing games at 1440p, at least modern AAA titles. Some games have trouble running at 1080p on the ROG Ally, and for most AAA titles, you probably won't hit the maximum 144Hz. Just saying. That said, the higher resolution is definitely there for older titles and emulation. In my own personal experience, I play a lot of indie titles that could definitely be played at 1440p, 144Hz. But for modern titles like Starfield, I wouldn't expect to play this at the maximum resolution. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the carrying case. The carrying case as it stands does not have room for the charger itself. I don't know how big the charger is, but you can already see there's no room. There's only room for the device, the mouse puck, and like an extra stick cap. We also have to talk about the little hole at the bottom of the case to, be able to charge it. Is that not some sort of fire hazard? Is it safe to put this device in the case and then charge it? I would imagine Lenovo tested it out for themselves and found that it was okay to do that. Also, Dave2D pulled the device out via the stick when there's a perfectly viable strap that helps you pull the device out. One more thing we have to talk about is the D-pad. It's really loud. It's unreasonably loud for a D-pad. Okay, if you put it in headphones, you probably couldn't hear it. Heck, if you're blasting the audio out via the speakers, you probably couldn't hear it either. But you have to imagine how annoying it would be for other people around you to have to hear the clickety-clack of the D-pad as you're playing Street Fighter 6. Now we get to talk about the price. The price is starting at $699, the same price as the most expensive ROG Ally. That said, the official spec sheet says up to AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme. Up to? What does that mean? Does that mean there'll be a lower end SKU for cheaper? Or is the Z1 Extreme model a more expensive model and the $699 version refers to a cheaper model with a weaker processor? The wording here is very suspect, and I hope that Lenovo clears it up by giving us a full chart of all the SKUs. What are my thoughts on this device? Well, it's a very intriguing device. I want to put the controller through its paces. As someone that prides themselves on being able to execute difficult techniques, I want to see if I can do the same thing on this controller. I also want to see how comfortable this controller is after holding it for an extended period of time, because it is 2 pounds altogether. At the very least, I want to try this out and see for myself if it's worth getting. Lenovo's truly innovated in the PC handheld space. They've done a number of things that no other company in the PC handheld space has done yet, and it's very commendable. If you liked this video, be sure to press the thumbs up button and spread the good gospel of high-tech lowlife. And if you want to see more high-tech lowlife, be sure to subscribe and press the bell icon for notifications. And for you enlightened individuals, be sure to join my Discord server. And if you wish to support high-tech lowlife, be sure to check out our Patreon page. Links in the description down below.